In the world of classic cars, there are those that stand out for their speed, others for their luxury, and some for their rarity. But few can match the Norman Timbs Special when it comes to sheer uniqueness and unusual visual appeal. This one-of-a-kind masterpiece, born in the late 1940s, tells a story of innovation, rediscovery, and the enduring spirit of automotive enthusiasm. Our tale begins with Norman E. Timbs, a mechanical engineer with a passion for pushing the boundaries of car design. Timbs was no stranger to the world of high-performance vehicles, having made a name for himself designing cars for the Indianapolis 500. But in 1948, he set out to create something entirely different. A road car that would blend the sleek lines of World War II Grand Prix racers with the comfort and practicality needed for everyday driving. Timbs drew inspiration from some of the most iconic race cars of the era, including the Auto Union Type C and the Mercedes-Benz W25. These machines were known for their streamlined bodies and incredible speed, qualities that Timbs wanted to bring to the streets. With this vision in mind, he embarked on a 3-year journey to bring his dream car to life. The process of creating the Norman Timbs Special was nothing short of meticulous. Timbs began by sketching out his ideas and creating technical drawings, but he didn't stop there. To ensure every curve and line was perfect, he built several scale models, including a quarter-scale clay model that allowed him to fine-tune the car's shape. This attention to detail extended to a full-size wooden model, which served as the template for the final product. This video is sponsored by Aura. As Norman Timbs meticulously crafted his automotive masterpiece, safeguarding every sketch and model, he reminds us of a timeless lesson, the value of protecting our creations. In Timbs' era, it was innovative car designs. Today, in our digital age, it's our personal information that needs that same level of care and attention. Just as Timbs wouldn't leave his groundbreaking designs exposed, we can't afford to leave our sensitive data vulnerable in a world where information is as precious as any rare automobile. But recent data breaches at big companies like Dell, AT&T, and Ticketmaster have exposed millions of people's data. Even worse, a breach at national public data might have affected every American, with over 2.9 billion records leaked, including Social Security numbers. Hackers are now sharing this info online for free, making us all vulnerable. That's where Aura comes in. It watches over your personal data, checking the dark web and public records for signs of identity theft. Aura also offers breach alerts, a VPN for safe browsing, and even $5 million in identity theft insurance. To see if your data is at risk, try Aura free for 2 weeks at aura.com/topintel. It's a smart way to stay safe online. When it came to building the actual car, Timbs made some forward-thinking choices. He selected aircraft tubing for the chassis, a material known for its strength and lightweight. This decision helped keep the car's total weight down to around 2,200 pounds, an impressive feat for a vehicle of its size. The chassis provided a solid foundation for what would become the car's most striking feature, its body. For the body, Timbs turned to Emil Diet, a skilled craftsman known for his work on custom car bodies. Diet hand-formed the entire body out of aluminum, a material that was uncommon in car manufacturing at the time. The result was a seamless, flowing shape that looked like nothing else on the road. The car's body was so smooth and uninterrupted that it didn't even have doors. Instead, the entire rear section of the car could be lifted hydraulically, providing access to the engine, fuel tank, and spare tire. The final design of the Norman Timbs Special was truly a sight to behold. Standing just 47 inches tall at its highest point, the car hugged the ground in a way that few others did. Its long 117-inch wheelbase and overall length of 18 feet gave it a stretched, elegant appearance. These proportions, combined with the car's smooth, unbroken lines, created a vehicle that looked fast even when standing still. Under the hood, or more accurately, under the rear section, the Norman Timbs Special boasted a Buick inline-8 engine. This power plant, popular among high-performance cars of the 1940s, was capable of producing around 200 horsepower. That might not sound like much by today's standards, but in a car as light as the Timbs Special, it was enough to push the vehicle to speeds of up to 120 miles per hour. The engine's placement was another unique feature of the car. Unlike most vehicles of its time, which had their engines in the front, The Timbs Special's engine sat behind the driver's seat. This rear engine layout, inspired by Grand Prix race cars, helped with weight distribution and allowed for the car's sleek front end. It also contributed to the car's excellent handling and stability at high speeds. While the Norman Timbs Special was a custom-built machine, it did incorporate some parts from other vehicles. The suspension came from a Ford, while components like the brakes and steering were sourced from a Mercury. This blend of custom and off-the-shelf parts allowed Timbs to create a car that was both unique and reliable. After its completion in 1948, Timbs used the car for several years before selling it in 1952 to a buyer in California. After that, the trail went cold, and for decades the whereabouts of this unique vehicle were unknown. It wasn't until 2002 that the car resurfaced in an unexpected place, abandoned in the California desert. Despite years of exposure to harsh desert conditions, the Norman Timbs Special was found in surprisingly good shape. Its discovery sparked excitement in the classic car community, and it was soon sold at the Peterson Museum Classic Car Auction. The buyer was Gary Cerveny, a car collector from Malibu, who paid $17,600 for this forgotten piece of automotive history. Cerveny recognized the car's significance and decided to restore it to its former glory. He enlisted the help of Dave Krause, a renowned car restorer, to tackle the project. The restoration was a massive undertaking, but fortunately about 90% of the original body was still intact. This made it easier to preserve the car's unique design during the restoration process. In 2010, after years of painstaking work, the restored Norman Timbs Special made its public debut at the Amelia Island Concours d'Elegance, one of the most prestigious car shows in the world. The car was an instant hit, winning the RM Auctions trophy for the best open car. Attendees were captivated by its unusual design and the story of its rediscovery and restoration. However, the story of the Norman Timbs Special took a tragic turn in 2018. The car was caught in the devastating Woolsey Fire that swept through Malibu, California. The fire ravaged Cerveny's garage, where the Timbs Special was stored along with other rare cars. While the fire severely damaged the car's aluminum body, it wasn't completely destroyed. This glimmer of hope has led to plans for another restoration, although the extent of the damage means this will be an even more challenging process than the first restoration. The Norman Timbs Special represents more than just a unique car. It's a testament to the creativity and engineering prowess of its creator, Norman E. Timbs. It showcases the bold, forward-thinking design philosophy of the post-war era, when automotive designers were pushing boundaries and experimenting with new ideas. The car's rediscovery and subsequent restoration highlight the dedication of classic car enthusiasts in preserving automotive history. This extraordinary machine, born in 1953, wasn't just a car. It was a bold vision of the future, a fusion of aircraft technology and automotive design that pushed the boundaries of what was possible on four wheels. Our story begins in the early 1950s, a time of great optimism and technological advancement in America. World War II had ended less than a decade earlier, and the country was riding high on a wave of innovation and prosperity. It was in this climate that General Motors, one of the largest car manufacturers in the world, decided to create something truly revolutionary. The mastermind behind this ambitious project was Harley Earl, GM's chief designer. Earl had always been fascinated by aviation, and the post-war era saw a surge of excitement about jet-powered aircraft. He wondered, what if we could bring the power and sleekness of a jet fighter to the road? With this idea in mind, Earl and his team set to work on what would become known as the Firebird I, or XP-21. From the very beginning, it was clear that this wasn't going to be your average family sedan. The Firebird I looked more like something out of a science fiction movie than a car you'd see on the streets. Picture, if you will, a vehicle stretching nearly 20 feet long, yet standing less than 4 feet tall. Its body, crafted entirely from fiberglass, curved and swooped like the fuselage of an aircraft. At the rear, a large tail fin rose dramatically, while delta wings stretched out on either side, and at the front a clear bubble canopy housed a single seat. This was a car built for solo flights of fancy. But the Firebird I wasn't just about looks. Under its sleek exterior lurked a piece of technology that truly set it apart: a gas turbine engine. This was the same type of engine that powered jet aircraft, and it was the first time such an engine had been used in an American car. The engine, dubbed the Fire Turbo Power, was a marvel of engineering. Developed under the watchful eye of Charles L. McEwen, GM's vice president, it was capable of producing a whopping 370 horsepower. To put that in perspective, the average family car of the time might have had around 100 horsepower. The Firebird one was in a league of its own. But with great power came great challenges. The turbine engine, while impressive, had some significant drawbacks. For one, it was incredibly thirsty, guzzling fuel at an alarming rate. It also produced exhaust gases hot enough to melt asphalt, not exactly ideal for your daily commute. And then there was the issue of throttle response. Unlike a regular car engine, which responds almost instantly when you press the gas pedal, the turbine engine had a noticeable delay as it spooled up to speed. Despite these challenges, the team at GM pressed on, determined to create something truly groundbreaking. They tested models of the car in wind tunnels at the California Institute of Technology, fine-tuning its aerodynamics to squeeze out every last bit of performance. The result was a car that could theoretically reach speeds of up to 200 miles per hour, although this was never fully tested in real-world conditions. To help control this potential speed demon, the Firebird was equipped with some truly innovative features. It had both traditional mechanical brakes and air brakes, similar to those found on aircraft. These air brakes could be deployed at the flick of a switch on the steering wheel, helping to slow the car from high speeds. But the innovations didn't stop there. The Firebird one also featured ultrasonic door controls, allowing the driver to open the doors remotely using sound waves. While this technology never made it into production cars, it shows just how far GM was willing to push the envelope with this concept. In 1954, the Firebird one made its public debut at GM's Motorama, a traveling car show that showcased the company's latest designs and concepts. To say it caused a stir would be an understatement. Here was a car that looked like it had come straight out of the future, powered by an engine more commonly found in fighter jets. It captured the public's imagination and cemented GM's reputation as a forward-thinking, innovative company. While the Firebird one never went into production, it was simply too impractical for everyday use, its legacy lived on. GM went on to create the Firebird II in 1956 and the Firebird III in 1958, each one pushing the boundaries of automotive technology even further. These cars introduced concepts like regenerative braking and automated driving capabilities, ideas that were decades ahead of their time. Today, the Firebird one represents the unbridled optimism of the 1950s, a time when people believed that technology could solve all problems and lead us to a brighter future. While we may not all be driving turbine-powered cars today, the spirit of innovation that drove the creation of the Firebird continues to push the automotive industry forward. The 1960s was a decade of big dreams and even bigger ideas, especially when it came to cars. In 1961, Ford Motor Company unveiled a concept car that looked like it came straight out of a science fiction movie. This wasn't just any concept car, it was the Ford Gyron, a two-wheeled wonder that captured the imagination of car enthusiasts and futurists alike. Picture this. It's 1961, and you're walking into the Detroit Motor Show. Among the shiny new models and concept cars, one vehicle stands out from the rest. It's sleek, it's futuristic, and it's balancing on two wheels? That's right. The Ford Gyron was a car that defied convention in every way possible. The brains behind this revolutionary design were Sid Mead and Alex Tremulis. Mead was known as a visual futurist. Tremulis, on the other hand, had a background in aerospace and automotive design, having worked for companies like Cord, Duesenberg, and Ford. Together, they created a vehicle that looked more like a spacecraft than a car. But what made the Gyron truly special wasn't just its looks, it was the technology inside. The car was designed to use gyroscopes to stay upright when in motion. If you're wondering what a gyroscope is, think of it as a spinning wheel that helps objects maintain their orientation. It's the same technology that keeps ships steady in rough seas and helps spacecraft navigate in space. When the Gyron was stationary, it didn't rely on gyroscopes. Instead, small legs would extend from the sides to keep it upright. It was like a futuristic kickstand for a car that looked like it belonged in the 21st century. The Gyron's body was a masterpiece of aerodynamic design. Its smooth lines and bubble-like glass dome made it look like it could glide through the air with ease. The glass dome wasn't just for show. It served as the roof and doors of the car. Imagine stepping into your car through a giant glass bubble that lifts up like a spacecraft hatch. That's the kind of entrance the Gyron offered. Inside the Gyron, things got even more interesting. The car was designed for two passengers who would sit side by side under the glass dome, but the real innovation was in the controls. Instead of a steering wheel, the Gyron had a small dial. Push it forward to go faster, pull it back to brake, and turn it to change direction. This system, called fly-by-wire, was way ahead of its time. Today, many modern cars use similar electronic control systems, but in 1961, this was groundbreaking stuff. The Gyron also featured a number pad for a built-in radio telephone. Remember, this was decades before cell phones became common. The idea of having a phone in your car was pure science fiction at the time. There was even a TV-style display in the center console, a precursor to the touchscreens we see in cars today. But perhaps the most forward-thinking aspect of the Gyron was its vision for the future of driving. The designers imagined a world with automated highways, where cars like the Gyron could drive themselves. While we're still working on fully self-driving cars today, the Gyron was already exploring these ideas over 60 years ago. The Gyron wasn't just a random idea. Its development was deeply rooted in the cultural fascination with space exploration and futuristic technology of the early 1960s. The space race between the United States and the Soviet Union was in full swing, and car designers were eager to bring a bit of that space-age flair to the roads. Alex Tremulous, one of the Gyron's designers, was particularly influenced by his work with the U.S. Army Air Corps during World War II. He had worked on experimental aircraft and space vehicle concepts, and he brought that out-of-this-world thinking to the Gyron project. Tremulous was also inspired by the work of Louis Brennan, an Irish engineer who had experimented with gyroscopic technology. It was Brennan's work that helped spark the idea of a two-wheeled, gyroscopically balanced car. Despite all the excitement it generated, the Ford Gyron was never meant for production. It was a concept car in the truest sense, a showcase of ideas and a glimpse into a possible future. The original Gyron made appearances at both the Detroit and New York auto shows, turning heads and sparking imaginations wherever it went. Sadly, the original Gyron met a tragic end. In 1962, a fire broke out at Ford's Rotunda building in Dearborn, Michigan. The fire destroyed much of Ford's design archive, including the one-of-a-kind Gyron. It was a devastating loss for automotive history. But the story of the Gyron doesn't end there. Before the fire, Ford had built a second version of the Gyron. This red replica was used for promotional events and auto shows in the early 1960s. Unlike the original white Gyron, this replica was a rolling chassis without all the advanced technology. It didn't have the gyroscopes or the fancy controls, but it still captured the futuristic look of the original. This red Gyron survived and eventually became a prized collector's item. In 2012, it was sold at auction for $40,000, much more than anyone expected. The buyer remained anonymous, but the sale showed that the Gyron still had the power to captivate people, even half a century after its debut. The influence of the Ford Gyron extended far beyond the world of cars. Its futuristic design inspired toys, model kits, and even made appearances in Hollywood productions. While we never saw gyroscopically balanced cars become a reality, many of the Gyron's ideas have found their way into modern vehicles. The fly-by-wire steering, the centralized control displays, and even the concept of self-driving cars, all of these can trace their roots back to concepts explored in the Gyron. Picture a car so low to the ground, you'd think it was designed to slip under parking barriers. Now imagine that same car opening up like a fighter jet with a periscope instead of mirrors. No, this isn't a vehicle from a sci-fi movie, it's the Chevrolet Astro One, a mind-bending concept car that burst onto the scene in 1967. Our journey begins in the late 1960s. The world was changing rapidly, with advancements in technology and design reshaping every aspect of daily life. The automotive industry was no exception. Car makers were constantly looking for ways to innovate and stay ahead of the competition. It was in this environment of fierce creativity that Chevrolet, a division of General Motors, set out to create something truly revolutionary. The result of their efforts was the Chevrolet Astro One, a concept car that looked more like it belonged in a science fiction movie than on the streets of 1960s America. The Astro One made its grand debut at the 1967 New York Auto Show, immediately drawing attention and sparking conversations about the future of automotive design. What made the Astro One so special? Let's start with its most striking feature, its height. At less than 36 inches tall, the Astro One was incredibly low to the ground. To put that into perspective, most modern sports cars are around 50 inches tall. The Astro One was so low that it made even the sleekest sports cars of its time look bulky in comparison. But this wasn't just about looks. The designers at Chevrolet's Advanced Design Studio had a specific goal in mind: to explore new aerodynamic techniques. You see, in the 1960s, most cars were boxy and focused more on style than efficiency. The Astro One represented a major shift in thinking. Its low profile and streamlined shape were designed to reduce air resistance, potentially improving fuel efficiency and performance. The influence of aerospace engineering on the Astro One's design was clear. With its pointed nose, tapering rear end, and smooth flowing lines, the car looked more like a jet fighter than a typical automobile. Even the way you entered the car was aircraft inspired. Instead of traditional doors, the entire top of the Astro One opened up like the canopy of a fighter jet. This unique entry system allowed Chevrolet to maintain the car's sleek, uninterrupted body lines. Inside the Astro One, the aerospace influence continued. The car ditched the conventional steering wheel in favor of dual aircraft-style control sticks, or joysticks, located on both sides of the driver's seat. This radical control system was meant to reflect the high-tech, aviation-inspired design of the vehicle. The dashboard, too, was a departure from the norm. Instead of the round dials and analog gauges common in cars of the time, the Astro One featured a horizontal instrument panel with digital displays, cutting-edge technology for the 1960s. Another unique feature of the Astro One was its rear-view system. Traditional side mirrors were nowhere to be found. Instead, the car used a periscope-like device that extended from the roof, allowing the driver to see behind the vehicle without disrupting its aerodynamic shape. Under the hood, or rather at the rear of the car, the Astro One housed an unconventional powertrain. It was equipped with a 2.9-liter air-cooled flat-six engine, similar to the one used in the Chevrolet Corvair. This engine, capable of producing around 240 horsepower, was mounted in the rear of the car, giving the Astro One a more balanced weight distribution. This setup, combined with the car's lightweight construction and low center of gravity, suggested that the Astro One would have offered impressive performance capabilities. The Astro One also featured advanced engineering in its suspension and braking systems. Its suspension was highly specialized to accommodate the car's incredibly low stance, while its disc brakes were a forward-thinking choice at a time when many cars still use drum brakes. While the Chevrolet Astro One never made it to production, its influence on future automotive designs was significant. The car's focus on aerodynamics foreshadowed a shift in the industry towards more efficient vehicle shapes. This thinking would become increasingly important in the 1970s and beyond, as fuel efficiency became a major concern for both automakers and consumers. The Astro One's legacy can be seen in various Chevrolet models that followed. While the 1985 Chevrolet Astrovan bore little resemblance to the sleek concept car, it carried the same name, keeping the memory of the original Astro One alive. More significantly, the emphasis on aerodynamics pioneered by the Astro One would later influence the design of iconic Chevrolet models like the Corvette, which underwent major aerodynamic improvements in the 1980s and 1990s. As we look back on the Chevrolet Astro One today, we're reminded of the importance of pushing boundaries and thinking beyond the conventional. In many ways, the spirit of innovation embodied by the Astro One is more relevant than ever. As the automotive industry faces new challenges and opportunities from electric powertrains to autonomous driving technology, the lessons of the Astro One continue to resonate. The AMC Amatron. Back in the 1960s, people started getting worried about the environment and running out of oil. Car companies began looking for ways to make cars that didn't need gasoline. AMC, a company known for trying new things, decided to jump into the world of electric cars. They teamed up with Galton Industries, who knew a lot about batteries, to bring their idea to life. Richard Teague, the head designer at AMC, played a big part in creating the Amatron. He wanted to make a small, high-tech car that would work well in cities. The goal was to make an electric car that could go a long way on one charge, which was really hard to do back then. The Amatron was like a test car for new ideas that could help make better electric cars in the future. During this time, car companies were starting to realize they needed to make cars that didn't pollute as much and used less fuel. The Amatron was part of AMC's effort to be at the front of this movement, trying out new ways to make cars better for the environment. The Amatron looked really different from other cars at the time. It had a wedge shape instead of being round like most cars. This shape wasn't just for looks, it helped the car move through the air more easily, which made it more efficient. Even though it was small on the outside, the inside was designed cleverly to make the most of the space. It could fit 3 people sitting side by side, which was pretty impressive for such a small car. One of the coolest things about the Amatron was its battery system. It used 2 different kinds of batteries working together: lithium nickel fluoride and nickel cadmium. This smart combination let the car go about 150 miles on one charge, which was really good for back then. The car also had a special braking system that helped charge the batteries when the car slowed down. This showed how AMC was thinking ahead with their designs. Inside the Amatron, things were just as innovative. The seats could be blown up or deflated, which was a clever way to save space and make the car lighter. The dashboard was simple and easy to use, with all the controls easy to reach. This made the Amatron user-friendly, even for people who weren't used to electric cars. Now, let's talk about some numbers. The Amatron was tiny, just 85 inches long and weighing only 1,100 pounds. This made it super easy to drive and park in busy cities. The battery setup was really important. By using 2 different types of batteries, AMC found a way to get good performance and a long driving range. The lithium nickel fluoride batteries helped the car go far, while the nickel cadmium batteries were tough and could handle being charged and used a lot. The Amatron wasn't built for speed. It was made for driving in cities where you don't need to go super fast. The focus was on making it efficient and practical, perfect for getting around town without using any gas. When AMC showed off the Amatron in 1967, people got really excited. They loved its futuristic look and all the new technology inside. The idea of an electric car that could go so far on one charge was amazing to people. But even though everyone liked it, there were some big problems that stopped the Amatron from being made for people to buy. The main problem was that the batteries were really expensive. Back then, the technology for making good, affordable batteries was still new. This made it hard to make an electric car that didn't cost too much compared to regular cars. Also, there weren't many places to charge electric cars back then, which made it hard for people to use them every day. Even though the Amatron never made it to the streets, it had a big impact on the car world. It showed that electric cars could be practical and look good too. The ideas and technologies from the Amatron helped shape the electric cars we see today. In fact, AMC brought back the Amatron idea in 1977, calling it the Electron. This new version had some updates like side mirrors and a new paint job, but it was just for show and didn't actually have an engine. The Amatron's focus on being lightweight, efficient, and using advanced batteries set a standard for future electric cars. Many of its features, like the special braking system and using different types of batteries together, are common in today's electric cars. The Amatron helped change how people thought about electric vehicles, showing they could be real alternatives to gas-powered cars.